1 p.m. Chair Lawson. Present, sorry.
Oh, you're calling?
Roll call,
Yes.
sorry. So sorry. Vice Chair Haslam.
Here.
Director Carter.
Here.
Director Jacobs.
Here.
Director Skinner.
Here.
Our first item on the agenda is the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, thank you for this cold weather. It's actually been quite nice. Father, please let this meeting go smoothly. Let everyone air out what they need to, and let everything just be positive. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we adopt the agenda as presented, stated.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Now, public comment on the agenda.
On the consent agenda, Jim Conish, on the consent agenda within the agenda, I would respectfully say this. Of course, you want to work with the city and have recreation in the GRU right-of-ways. But in the MOU, it says that the authority agrees that a permit might not be required. In other words, that you're actually in their right-of-ways and you need a permit. And they have an ordinance saying that you have ignored, that it appears to be illegal. So what I would say that if you want to cooperate, let them repeal their ordinance, trying to drag $2 million in permitting fees out of the ratepayers. Have them repeal that. Have them recognize that the right-of-ways appear on your books as an $800,000 asset because they were given to you 100 years ago free of charge, sir. And just end the nonsense. And then, of course, Johnson's bill, the right-of-ways are mentioned, franchise fees, and you can adopt that by resolution, just like other elements of the Johnson bill that you're doing tonight, sir, thanks to your brilliant and really reasonably priced attorney. For someone in his league, his fees are reasonable.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chuck Ross. On the consent agenda, you have the agreement for the Solar 6 LLC with GRU to terminate that agreement. I'm going to ask that you pull that and table it because at this point, this board shouldn't be making any decisions while the judges while the item is pending as to whether or not you're going to be the authority further in the future. So that's the first thing. But in addition to that, the backup is not sufficient to determine for the public to understand exactly why it's being terminated. Is there a cost for it to be terminated? There's a chart that talks about the cost of PPAs in the future through the second quarter of 24. For some reason, it's not up to date. But what about the cost of fossil fuel in the future? What is the cost of comparison? Don't know. So I would ask that you pull this item and table it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here. My name is David Hastings. I'm a GRU customer and a Gainesville resident. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk about the agenda this evening, the consented agenda, deciding to have a consent agenda and eliminating the opportunity for discussion in the public on whether to build a utility-scale solar array doesn't allow us the public discussion, which I think is really important. GRU, as we all know, is a municipal utility owned by the city of Gainesville. And GRU has been doing a great job in the past century generating electricity. And now there's the decision whether or not to have this contract for the solar array with Origis. And it appears that GRU and GRUA is making the incorrect argument that solar is too expensive. Yes, we know that some PPA prices have gone up by about 5% this quarter, about 10% over the past year. But that's no reason to walk away from the contract, since many other forms of generating electricity, including gas, are also going to be more expensive. And the cost of inaction on climate impacts is also going to be considerable in the short and long term. Ask anybody who's living in the Los Angeles environs. We do know that solar is the dominant form of new generating capacity in the United States. About 2/3 of the new generating capacity was generated by solar last year. Another 20% was battery, a little bit by wind, and 4% by gas. So if we're going to build a new power plant, the cheapest form is to build solar in spite of these increasing prices. So yes, the prices have increased a little bit, but in Florida, we are there is an enormous amount of solar being installed in Florida, as I think you all know, something like 40 gigawatts of solar in 2024, which is really considerable. We were the second largest state, aside from Texas, for new solar installations, the second highest state for solar energy. So deciding to walk away from solar at this point and not allowing any public discussion, I think, is a mistake, and I cordially ask you to put this back on the agenda or to retract it. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Directors, Bobby Murmer, Coordinator of the Alachua County Labor Coalition, commenting on the consent agenda, specifically item 2, the termination and release of solar power purchasing agreement, the agreement with Origis. Not going to ask, and the ACLC isn't asking that this be taken off consent. We know that the authority is going to do what the authority is going to do. We know this is a done deal. But it's important for this body to understand that this is a really bad decision for 3 reasons. First of all, it's not even well informed. If you look at the backup, both the agenda item note as well as the presentation, it says that other Florida utilities have been canceling their solar PPAs because of unexpectedly increased costs. We could find, after consultation with the Clio Institute, we could find no such trend in the state. So that seems to be a mistake, an error. Second, we are concerned that this is just a way to chip away at our ability to generate our own power, so that way we could eventually enter into some agreement to establish a tie line with FP&L, Duke, or FNPA. And power generation is very important to this community. It's why our charter requires that before any assets are sold off, there has to be a referendum of the city voters. So this sort of feels like a backdoor way to force us into having to use a tie line and bulk purchase power as opposed to generate it. So it sort of seems like privatization of power generation by decay. And lastly, it's a slap in the face to the 73% of city voters who voted yes on the local public utilities referendum this November. The city, this community, this utilities owner spoke loud and clear that we want our locally elected officials to govern the utility and make big decisions like this. There's a court case in the works right now, and to make this sort of big decision while that's all pending, it's just very disrespectful to the owners of this utility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm also here to talk about consent item number 2. My name is Janice Gary, and I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Alachua County. On November 5th, 2024, 85% of registered voters in Alachua County submitted ballots for the general election. And on a referendum, 73% of voters chose to eliminate the authority and return governance of GRU to our local elected officials. The will of the voters should be honored. In 2018, Alachua County Commissioners declared a climate emergency, and the city of Gainesville resolved to produce 100% of energy by renewable sources by 2045. Alachua County and Gainesville support solar energy, both rooftop and utility scale, and the League supports these decisions made by local elected officials. The League would like to congratulate Gainesville for being awarded nearly $12 million to install electric vehicle chargers across the city. Ideally, these vehicles would be charged with solar energy. Recently, this authority eliminated net metering for rooftop solar. Now, without discussion at the dais or with the public, a utility-scale solar array may be canceled. The public deserves information about the decision and to participate in a thoughtful discussion about the decision. We deserve to know the plan for future reliable energy, since the Comprehensive Integrated Management Plan has been canceled. As each person in this room knows, Florida recently experienced 3 powerful hurricanes in quick succession. Carbon emissions are the primary contributor to changes in our climate. The billions of dollars and untold suffering of a destructive hurricane is far greater than the cost of solar energy. The decisions made in this room are out of step with the City of Gainesville and most GRU customers and voters. Allow the public to be informed, allow discussion, allow transparency. These are the principles of the League. These are principles that should be respected. Thank you.
My name is Mohammed. I have a very long name, Sayyid Muhammad. I had, but known in the community, in the school, with the name of Muhammad. I have sent the email, sir, all of you, because it is a very long, issue, you see. The main thing is, I requested you to listen the audio of the caller in which he mentioned...
Excuse me, sir. Sir, are you talking about anything that's on the agenda tonight?
What's that?
This is the public comment for the agenda. Do you have any?
No, I'm not yet.
Yeah, okay, so there's
Can I
another
get-
chance for you to
Okay,
speak.
thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Nancy Darren. First, I want to say I'm so glad to see the monthly status report about the utility back on. That's such a useful tool. But I'm dismayed to see the PPA on the consent agenda, since it warrants discussion about a larger issue of the future of providing electricity in a safe, reliable, and manageable way. What's the cost already incurred to reach this point, and what costs are involved in ending this contract, given that it was a final point of implementation? The diversity of GRU's fuel mix that this solar PPA would strengthen has reversed course under the authority in Mr. Belarski's preference for natural gas that has taken GRU from about 43% to around 70% dependence on natural gas. At the same time, risk of relying so heavily on it has increased, given supply chain, cost concerns, and exposure to international markets and geopolitics. Risk of exposure to increased fuel adjustment charges has gone way up, which falls directly on customers, as well as trapping GRU in a vulnerable state, despite the prepayment agreement. You saw what happened when the price of gas spiked during the Ukraine war, and the rapid spike in GRU's fuel adjustment charge wreaked havoc on people's bills. It was not rates. Rates are a total red herring and a dangerous one that favors short-term narrow choices instead of long-term predictability and stability. Now that natural gas is part of global commodity markets, it's vulnerable to global politics, international markets, and commodity pricing, which means our domestic supply and pricing is far more volatile. Natural gas prices today are already up around $4, a 21% increase in the last month. More than $5 billion leaves Florida annually to pay for gas imports to support electrical generation. Why keep increasing GRU's portion of that when we can diversify and increase our percentage of locally derived fuels? The ability of biomass and solar to extend the life of GRU's very old plants give us mix to maximize efficient generation and extend the life of those plants. 75 megawatts of solar is a meaningful addition to that mix and reduces multiple risk factors. For example, during the Texas freeze, natural gas prices to Florida skyrocketed, costing GRU and other utilities shocking prices. Then supply froze up. GRU, having a diversity of fuel, used biomass, coal, and solar to not only provide our electricity, but sold $900,000 of our power to other utilities that were very dependent on natural gas. GRU made a net of $600,000 in about a week. We shouldn't take things off the table. They warrant discussion. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, good evening. My name is Melanie. I'm a UF student and also the Gainesville Regional Lead for the Clio Institute. I would like to be discussing item number 2 on the agenda. I want to thank everybody for coming out to talk about that and bringing really cool, hard facts. I think that's really important when we discuss a matter like this. But I'll just keep it short and sweet and talk about some important things that haven't really been mentioned. Solar PPAs are one of the only ways that families and homes who can't afford the upfront cost of solar can get solar on their homes. And as we know, a large percentage of ratepayers in Gainesville to utility meet that category, who can't afford those upfront costs. So this kind of proposal to remove PPAs kind of really narrows the margin of people who can afford to have a stable form of energy, that the rates are also stable as well. Also echoing what everybody has said, solar is way cheaper than fossil gas in Florida. Kind of going off the stability on that on the ratepayers' end. So if the goal of GRU is to reduce rates for your ratepayers, then that would be an option that should be explored. There are a lot of existing restrictions on the exploration of renewable energy in Florida. I'm sure everybody knows that. And so removing solar energy as an option is really would remove the idea of exploring a renewable energy portfolio. And I don't think that that's part of GRU's goal when we're talking about sustainability. And I think ultimately that sustainability is a long game, and I think everybody knows that. Like, it's in the definition itself. And I think that inaction definitely farly outweighs the costs that this program could have with climate change, and that ultimately, GRU has to decide if they work for their ratepayers or if they work for fossil fuel companies and the agenda that's behind that. So this item definitely needs to be reconsidered and not removed. The PPA program should not be removed, and solutions should be re-explored and reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, for the record, did she want to give her last name?
Yeah, Melanie Shepins.
Shepins?
Yep. Shepins. I can come up to you later. Okay.
My last name's even worse. I'll have to spell it. But my name's Campbell. I'm a Gainesville resident. I'm a student at the University of Florida, and I'm here as a representative of Sunrise Movement's Gainesville Hub. So we're a climate activist group. So I'm going to be here talking mostly about the climate effects of solar energy, but a little bit about everything. So I'm expressing opposition to agenda number 2. Florida has huge capacities for solar energy, and we are, as mentioned, making great strides. But renewable energies only comprise 7% of our in-state generated energy, and we have the capacity in our Sunshine State for so much more. With the devastating wildfires in California closing out the hottest year on record in at least 100,000 years, we are seeing the impacts of the climate crisis firsthand. Not in the future, we're seeing it right now. And it's time we urgently shift dependence away from fossil fuels, pushing instead towards solar as a dependable and cost-saving means of renewable energy. And focusing purely on the economics, solar energy is cheaper by kilowatt hour than fossil fuels by all measures. In fact, the IEA calls solar power the cheapest electricity in history. PPAs allow households to benefit from the lower stabilized cost of solar that might not otherwise have the financial resources to do so and install their panels on their own home. While I recognize the limitations of material and labor costs that accompany construction, PPAs will ultimately serve to stabilize and reduce the costs in the long term, not even considering the reduction of emissions, benefiting GRU and its ratepayers. To think only of the short term and ignore the tremendous benefits of solar power would be a profound disservice to the residents and the planet. With this understanding, it's kind of hard to not feel the determination of this contract serves only to benefit the interests of big oil corporations. GRU has the opportunity to invest in a more environmentally and economically sustainable Gainesville. It has the opportunity to prove that it truly strives towards the best interests of its residents by investing in PPAs, ensuring access to affordable and reliable energy, and ascertaining that it is not determined by income level. Your actions today are a reflection of your values and carry tremendous weight in determining our future. So we urge GRU to prioritize the health, environment, and best financial interests of the Gainesville community over the greed that comes with the fossil fuel industry and its short-term promises of profit. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jyoti Parmar, and I'm an organizing representative for the Sierra Club of Florida, and I'm a 20-year resident of Gainesville. I wear multiple hats in this town, and gotta say, gentlemen, you gotta stop making me leave my dinner and come rushing over here to talk to you all. I usually find a way to not come up here. This is my first time actually speaking to you. I have a lot of questions about Origis and the contract termination, and they're not all being answered in the content you have online. I'm a former business person. Contracts don't just get canceled easily. I'm curious to know what is going on behind the scenes. Is Origis asking to have this contract canceled? I mean, you don't get to just say, hey, you made a contract and no, we're not going to do this. There's usually some repercussions. So I'd like to hear more about that. So with the people of Gainesville, when I stand here, I wear multiple hats and I'm speaking for at least 6,000 people when I speak. And we all want to know what else is going on and what the alternatives are. The price of PPA, yes, it may be that it's higher at the moment than you get in natural gas, but the natural gas is very volatile. You know that, we know that. So what are we doing as a regional utility? What are we doing to make sure our prices long-term remain low and that we're investing in our future? And without going into all the wonderful details that our students from UF have spoken, aren't you impressed by them? I'm so blown away by them. Great facts, all of them have. I'm talking to you just as a regular person, talking to regular people. There are people watching who don't know the details of PPPs and, pricing and what goes on behind contracts, and we'd like to hear more about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, seeing as there no more public comment, back to the board for discussion on the agenda.
Well, I would like to say that this does not preclude GRU from entering into future agreements. This is strictly dealing with the Origis contract as it currently exists and the cost overruns that they're looking at. So that does not mean that we're not looking at other alternatives. This is just one particular contract.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the chair comments.
I don't have a lot of comments tonight. Just wanted to say, as far as on the consent agenda, there was a lot of comments. Mr. Belarski has been educating this board for several meetings now about that contract. For me personally, I don't have anything against solar, and I fully expect that Ed is going to come back to this board throughout the next year with opportunities for GRU to invest in solar. It was, as Ed has educated us, The deal that was today is not the deal that was signed several years ago. One big component of that was that a land access that was made available originally was no longer available, and so that significantly increased the cost of that deal, which you've covered in previous meetings. That's why it's on the consent agenda. The last thing I will remind all the other board members is if you ever want to take something off the consent agenda, I'm always open to that. So, and we will always do that if another board member wishes to do that. But that was the why we put it on the consent agenda. And with that, that concludes my comments.
Thank you. The next item is the general public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish. You recently adjusted the tier from $850 to $1,000 for the cheap price and raised the price over $1,000. And the few crumbs that the ratepayers got would be eliminated because the city commission wants garbage trucks that run on Kool-Aid, and they're going to jack up the fees 20% to achieve this. And because of the cruel and regressive tie between stormwater and garbage within the city of Gainesville only, not the county, not the unincorporated area, it wipes out the savings and the bills go up for everyone. The first 59%, the next 41%, and Ed knows that it needs to be done. I'm a landlord. I've done good lately. I'll take the stormwater. It doesn't belong to my tenants, sir. It's unfair. It creates an effective customer charge for your Sky Eye electric rates of about $60. If you're on a $600-700 a month income, just the fixed charge wipes 10% of the person's income out. That's regressive. If you look at the total cost per kilowatt hour, without that, they're paying exorbitant fees where they can't have a refrigerator or lights. That's wrong. That's indefensible. I know Trimark's not going to like it. I know Collier's not going to like it. So what? Thank you for considering that. Yes, cutting the transfer, direct transfer by 30 million has stabilized your rating outlook, but there's no chance of improvement because the fundamental structural problems haven't even been addressed. So let's keep that in mind. Your favorite paper, the Main Street News, went into that. We had a spectacle where no one from GRE was available, and basically the city and county got together, and the city wants the county to talk to you about the streetlights because they're tired of paying for it for the last 30 years. The county has been receiving free fire hydrants from GRU since 2006, with the cost offloaded onto the average GRU ratepayer. That seems unjust, sir. We had our child at your hospital. I know about cost shifts. So these are cost shifts, sir. These are not contemplated under Article 7, Section 12, sir. Like the county commission needs to step up to the plate and not only pay for streetlights and fire hydrants, but any other things they're freeloading off the GRU ratepayer. There's SLAs with the county that even have been talked about, like collecting their utility tax and sales tax for free. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Angela Castile. I'm here to urge you to reconsider the use of fluoride in Gainesville's drinking water. While fluoridation was originally intended to improve dental health, growing evidence shows that its risks outweigh the benefits. Fluoride is now classified as a developmental neurotoxin, alongside lead and arsenic. A 2014 study in The Lancet Neurology highlights how fluoride exposure harms brain development. Additionally, research published in Environmental Health Perspectives in 2017 found that children exposed to higher fluoride levels in utero significantly had significantly lower IQs. Beyond cognitive effects, fluoride contributes to physical health issues like dental and skeletal fluorosis, thyroid dysfunction, and even kidney and liver damage, especially in the vulnerable populations. Water fluoridation forces all residents to consume fluoride regardless of individual health needs, consistent or consent. The practice removes the right to choose and assumes a one-size-fits-all approach that is neither ethical nor safe. We can protect dental health without fluoridation. Effective alternatives include topical fluoride, oral health education, and targeted programs. Cities like Portland and Tucson have chosen not to fluoridate their water and still maintain strong public health policies. Gainesville can do the same. As leaders entrusted with our utilities and public health, I urge you to remove fluoride from our water. Let's prioritize safety, informed consent, and public health solutions that align with Gainesville's values. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Chris Russell. I've been an operator in the state of Florida for over 20 years. I've been treating water for 20 years. I'm here to ask that this authority remove fluoride, the addition of fluoride to our drinking water. And explain why quickly. It's the risk versus reward. 1949, GRU decided that they were going to be the first in the state to fluoridate water. At the time, it was a great idea because it was promoting oral health. Here we are today, 2025. It's our responsibility when we're providing this service, drinking water, safe drinking water, to assess the reason why we're doing it. Florida Administrative Code only requires the addition of one chemical to water for treatment. That's chlorine, to deactivate bacteria. The addition of fluoride it's an additive. It's not necessary, especially when there are numerous natural sources of fluoride now, 2025. A tube of toothpaste has 1,000 milligrams of fluoride in it. There's enough natural to where we don't have to add it to our water. That's the safe side of it. If you think about the economical cost, GRU used 111,000 gallons of hydrofluorosilicic acid in 2024. Think of the cost of that per gallon, and it's an addition. I know GRU is working on their budgets and trying to cut costs. It's a win-win for everybody. We're approaching this from public health and safety, but we're also trying to reduce a budget that needs help. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm David Chase. I'm a long-term resident of Gainesville. And I think this decision about whether to continue adding fluoride to the drinking water is such a good subject, not just for the health reasons and the financial benefit, but because it demonstrates how we, as a citizen, we do not need to be passive and think that we don't know enough. This issue of fluoridization of drinking water is understandable and for anybody with a high school level of biology and chemistry. And in order to justify a decision to add a dangerous chemical, potentially dangerous chemical, to the drinking water, it is not enough to just go by consensus or by, by sensing the different pressures from industry, the onus of proof that this is a good thing is on those who assert that it is so. The onus of proof is not for those on those like myself that are skeptical. This is a personal issue for me. As a construction worker many years, I drank gallons and gallons of this stuff. Why add something that has, let's grant that maybe it has, under certain conditions, some benefit as a topical. Why ingest it into our body? It's proven over and over again that, okay, at certain percentage, it damages IQ, especially in young children. It damages the thyroid, which I'm a thyroid disease sufferer. So I've been getting by with spring water, drinking spring water, and thinking about maybe I should get an expensive filter or reverse osmosis filter. But then there's other, and okay, so that's it in short.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know where I stand. I wish I'd found out earlier about this subject. I could have mobilized many of my friends who feel the same way.
Good evening. My name is Ramey Eagle Glenn, and tonight I am here as a concerned citizen. Fluoride is a drug that is recommended to treat cavities, according to the FDA and the CDC. This is a bottle of over-the-counter mouthwash, and there is a label that says drug facts. This is required to be placed on this item by the FDA, and the #1 active ingredient is sodium fluoride. There are many products like this that people can choose to go buy or to opt out of that and buy something fluoride-free. So the question arises, why are all GRU customers being medicated for decades by city officials without our consent? Why will the ADA, the American Dental Association, continue to demand that we all drink fluoride to prevent cavities without even an FDI drug facts label on our taps at home? What is the daily dose of fluoride that we are drinking at home? And how does drinking fluoride day after day, year after year, really benefit our teeth when most of the fluoride is ingested into our bodies, stored in our vital organs, and some of it eliminated as waste? These are all questions that should be determined on an individual basis, not a one-size-fits-all forced blanket medical treatment. Today, more than half of Florida counties do not fluoridate water. Just last night, the cities of Niceville and Melbourne ended fluoridation, and I got word on my way here that the municipality of Immokalee, near Collier County, or within Collier County, chose to end fluoridation today. Our knowledge and understanding of fluoride has changed. The Journal of the American Medical Association this month published a meta-analysis of 74 epidemiological studies examining the link between children's IQ and fluoride, and found that the more fluoride pregnant women and young children are exposed to, the greater the decrease in the child's IQ. Questions. Are fluoride levels at GRU water monitored, and how? At what levels does fluoride occur naturally in GRU water? What is the source of fluoride added to GRU? Who do you get it from? How much does the fluoride cost? Is there a contract in place for GRU to purchase fluoride? And what are some city and county funded alternatives for providing fluoride treatment to parents who opt in for fluoride for their families? The CDC and ADA, both very powerful lobbies, will maintain the latest findings on fluoride and neurotoxicity are preliminary and that more research must be conducted. To the CDC and the ADA, I say this: we are not your lab rats. We are the American people. The perceived benefits of water fluoridation to prevent cavities are far outweighed by the risks of lower IQ in children and below-level reading scores. I ask this authority to place an agenda item for a future date. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, directors, Bobby Murmer, commenting right now in my capacity as a personal citizen and ratepayer of GRU, responding to the previous 4 commenters and urging you to not consider discussing the possibility of removing fluoride from our drinking water at a future meeting. I strongly urge you to leave this issue alone. Growing up outside of Tampa in a part of Newport Richey, Florida called Moon Lake, very impoverished area, mostly trailers. We were all on well. Back in 2016, early 2016, I had gotten my second root canal within a year. And that was an embarrassing thing to do, right? I'm a young man and have 2 root canals within 1 year. And the endodontist could tell that I wasn't comfortable with this and felt sort of icky about needing to do this at such a young age. And he showed me my x-rays and pointed out how my teeth under an x-ray looks like a sponge. Why? I drink well water. Well water is not fluoridated. This has cost me a lot of money. Sometimes I wonder, right here, feels like I might need another root canal pretty soon. There's no need to do this to our children, what I have to go through, and what many people who grew up on well water like I did have to go through. I know it's fashionable right now to not fluoridate water, but please be the adults in the room. Leave this issue alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck Ross. I wanted to talk about a couple of things not related to the prior speakers. One of the things that concerned me was the general manager brought an item for the IRP, the Integrated Resources Plan, and in that he basically indicated he's either going to pause it or it sounded like abandon it to me. But setting that aside, the Chair Lawson correctly asked him to explain his reasoning or his bring back some data on the extension of the life of certain of the power generators that Mr. Bolarski, the general manager, planned to do, and what were the costs and risks associated with that decision, as opposed to continuing with the prior IRP that Mr. Cunningham had brought. And I'm wondering if and when the general manager is going to bring that information back to the board so we can understand. And further, there was no, what he called a plan of optionality, which to me doesn't mean anything. That means like, I don't know what I'm going to do now, I'll figure it out later. We'd like to know what we're going to do, not figure it out later. So there's that. I had a concern. I happened to catch Mr. Bolarski, the general manager, at the joint Alachua Joint Legislative Delegation on last Thursday at Santa Fe, and he had his a presentation of his what he considered the top 10 achievements by the authority since it's been installed. I didn't happen to agree that all of those points that he made were top 10, but one of the things that he said was that they had reduced the authority had reduced the GFT basically from 38 million. He said that's what it was, but it made it sound like that's what you inherited when what you actually inherited was 15 million, not 38 million, and to 8, which that part's correct because he has deducted certain or made certain adjustments to the 15 million general transfer to the city, which I don't agree with at least 4 million or 5 million of that. for various reasons I've stated earlier, one of which is the wrongly calculated overdraws from 2018 to 2021, which are basically, he doubled. And that caused the board here to adopt a resolution to reduce the GFT by $6.8 million a year, which I don't agree with. Yeah, I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Cecilia Infante. I'm here to talk about fluoride. Fluoride is a poison. It is a chemical waste product. A tube of toothpaste with fluoride carries a warning, do not swallow, and in case of accidental ingestion, contact the Poison Control Center. A 1/4 milligram of fluoride in a pea-sized amount of toothpaste. This is the same amount of fluoride in an 8-ounce glass of water. And we're recommended to drink 8 glasses of water a day. The ADA and the CDC recommend that infants not receive fluoridated water or fluoride water for drinking nor for making their formula, since fluoridated water contains 250 times more fluoride than mother's milk. The dangers of fluoride are as follows. It increases lead absorption. It disrupts synthesis of collagen, produces hyperactivity or lethargy, muscle disorders, brain damage, genetic damage and cell death, increase in tumor and cancer rate, disrupts immune system, damages sperm and increases infertility, arthritis, dementia, bone fractures, decrease in thyroid function, bone cancer, inactivates 62 enzymes, inhibits the formation of antibodies. So my question to you tonight is, why are you continuing to poison us? Thank you, gentlemen.
Sayyid Muhammad Haider. After 14 years coming in GRU, with the blessing of God, I am lucky enough to know the truth from the people who are illegally occupying the place and getting the utility services from the GRU. This is very surprising for all of you. If I say it is after 42 years, the people are occupying that place by different name and getting the services. And what happened? In few months before, one of the corporation who was operating there, became inactive, and the division of corporation dissolved it administratively. When this thing came in front of me, I brought in the notice of the GRU, another department of the Alachua County, and other people. And I'm very happy the GRU, the first one who took the action, and accordingly, when they were about to close their facility, about utility services, they contacted them on 11/20/2024. And that's why I have mentioned in my email that please listen the audio of that gentleman, what he's saying. I will just read very few lines. This is very interesting.
Thank you for calling GRU. My name is Osby. Who am I speaking with today? Hi, I'm sorry, caller. I can barely hear you. If I'm on speaker, would you take me off, please? Yeah. Can you hear me now? A little bit better. Yes. What can I do for you today, sir? Yeah. So I'm calling regarding our property at 1010 West University Avenue, Islamic Community Center of Gainesville. Okay, give me one moment. I'm going to
Okay, it is very long audio. This is the bottom line. When I came to know about this thing, I'm thankful GRU, they have shared this audio. The rest of the thing is against me, whatever, I did not care about this thing. Here is my question, which I raised to the GRU. I say, if a caller, this is a very important issue. We have to think about more than that. If any caller, any person call you and say, we are the owner of the property and we have registered with Division of Corporation and give us the services. Please, if any whistleblower, any person, law-abiding person, brings some information from other department and present you, then you have to have a look on it and see.
Sir, your time is up.
Yes, sir?
Sir, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm finishing, sir. My question is, which I have written for you, sir. Okay, when the person is saying that we are the owner of the property and the whistleblower or the law-abiding person giving you all the information from the Alachua County Clerk Court, and it is contradicting their information, therefore you have to decide. Here is my simple submission is at the end, sir. I just want to know, because this is a very long struggle, what I need from you, sir.
Sir.
From the legal.
Sir, I'll ask Mr. Bilarski to continue to work with you, and our legal counsel will also work with you, okay?
Okay, I just need a legal opinion, whatever. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your great help. Thank you.
The next one you gotta watch.
Good evening.
It's my dentist, okay?
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Dr. Bert Hughes. I'm a graduate at the University of Florida, a graduate of Harvard Medical School, Global Health Leaders Program, past president of Alachua County Dental Association, and a practicing dentist here in Florida, in Gainesville for the past 35 years. First of all, fluoride is safe. We have studied this at the CDC level, the ADA level, and peer-reviewed studies all show this. Many people are pointing to many things they see on the internet. I would encourage all the citizens that have looked at this to look at Google Scholar and not just look at Google. That way you'll get peer-reviewed articles about this subject matter. Fluoride is naturally occurring in water. It naturally occurs in Gainesville water. It naturally occurs in Jacksonville water. In Jacksonville, it's naturally occurring at an optimal level such that they do not have to fluoridate their water. In Gainesville, it occurs at a suboptimal level, thus that we add it so that we can have it at a level where it can fight decay but not be harmful to our citizens. When I was in school, I actually had the opportunity to deal with the National Toxicology Institute. That some 35 years ago, they were saying fluoride causes cancer. And I was the one that wrote the paper that said, nope, no, they don't. Look at your science. And we showed that that wasn't true. We're back at that same step again where they're using science that is not peer-reviewed. And when it has been peer-reviewed, it's been because they're putting it to this peer review, they're denying it. The next one, they deny it. And finally, they get someone to actually publish a study. So I would encourage you to make fluoride a non-starter in our community. One of the people said that we can do it through education. No insurance company covers oral hygiene instruction. When dentists do that, they do that out of their own goodwill. That is not a paid service. When you look at state public programs, they have reduced the pay for oral hygiene instruction by over 200%, thus not putting an emphasis on that type of instruction, and that's very important as well. So these are the types of things that will affect us. If you have more cavities, it is going to cost us a lot more money to actually fix these issues. I've actually encouraged the University of Florida Department of Community Dentistry, which is located in a dental school, to do a study between High Springs and Alachua, because Alachua has fluoridated water. High Springs does not have naturally fluoridated water and is not fluoridated, to see if there are any differences, but it's very hard to do a causal and effect study. So that is what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair, that's your 30-minute total. So,
What do you recommend? You're the expert on.
I'd say you got two more speakers.
Okay,
and
so if everyone's okay, we'll allow the last two speakers. Okay. Thank you for
But
reminding me.
I would just call
Thank
it
you.
after Mr. Shepherd's
Okay,
meeting.
Mr. Shepherd will be the last one.
Hello, my name is Paige Nicholson. I'm a dentist in town. I went to UF for undergrad. I went to UF for dental school, and I will be returning to UF for 3 years to be a periodontal resident. I did not prepare any stats. I didn't expect to speak today. But to echo what our previous speaker just said, insurance doesn't cover topical fluoride either. They cover it for children, but not for adults, so that wouldn't be a solution for a lot of people who can't really afford their dental care to begin with. Additionally, as a dental student at UF, I saw, unfortunately, a lot of patients who lost all their teeth because they were on well water. And this is something that all my classmates saw, and I had 100 classmates, and each class has 100 people. So each of us had at least one patient who lost all their teeth because they were on well water. And that was very impactful to see, so I hope that you do not take fluoride out of our water. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Donald Shepherd, and I take and represent the people. That's what I've done since I came here to Gainesville. And I want to say I am very angered to hear this subject of this being in our drinking water. All these years, all these mayors, commissioners, and GRU people, and these wild places, several things that are being just overlooked. This here does not need to be overlooked. We need a study on this, and I think there should be a lawsuit in effect over this to our city, because our city is now, like they did all along, they have drained the funds of GRU, they drained the funds of different boards, and it appalled me to hear a woman from the ladies auxiliary to be here, and for her to take and say what she had said. She was on the Board of Commissions. She has came to the city commissions. We have DVDs, or at least I do, of every one of those commissions meetings. And why is it all of a sudden now that people are stepping up to talk about this? No, we need a statewide interview of this, and we need proof. Does it harm our people? And if so, it needs to be withdrawn immediately, because this here is something that is very close to my heart. I got grandchildren, and I'm one of these people that this supposedly water has deteriorated my teeth and my health. No thanks to a bicycle accident, it crippled me. But I'd like to hear more about how this is going to be stopped and how this really is or isn't a factor of harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to move on.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is CEO comments.
Gentlemen, I have a few things to say about some of the public comment, just to set the record straight. I just want folks to understand that this was not unilateral on the part of GRU. This was an agreed-upon settlement with a Regis who couldn't perform under the contract. So we reached a settlement because we didn't want to get into an even higher cost of this deal. So this was not GRU unilaterally getting out of a contract. It's not a backdoor way to privatize the utility. It's actually protecting the customers. And we will engage with the Regis in the future. We'll look for other opportunities. So I appreciate the chair's comments that we will continue to look at these things. There was also a comment about the IRP. I want to be real clear about it. It was not canceled. It is just being executed upon. There was the time for looking at alternatives was over, and the time to execute upon the findings was now, and that's what we're doing. There was also a comment about the high price of natural gas. Every year in the winter, when supplies go down because people are using it for home heating, we see those prices go up. So that's not an indication of some problem in the market. It's actually the market working, and we plan for that. One of the numbers that was presented here was about how much we've changed in terms of using more natural gas as opposed to renewables. The biomass plant was down. We have our rotor, we have the parts that are in place. We're going to come back up, but it was down for a period of time, which required replacement with natural gas. So using those numbers is somewhat disingenuous. Solar, the all-in costs are also not cheap. It doesn't take into account capacity. One more thing, the general fund transfer at the delegation meeting, I did speak to it. I talked about it peaking at $38 million. I didn't talk about the fact that you folks have brought it down from $38 million, but I did talk about it going to $8 million. So I just wanted to set the record straight on that. But I did want to bring to everyone's attention my one utility, one goal, customer first vision and goal for the next year. Talked to Chair Lawson and thought it was an appropriate time to pull some of the things that have been discussed at these meetings with the vision for the organization. So it's 7 bullets that really bring together what we're looking for, not only in 2025, but beyond. And I think we're going to live this vision. It really is thinking about everything we're doing from the customer's perspective first. And it can be not only in that first bullet where we're talking about improving the customer experience. We want to make the customer portal, which is the website presence, which is us getting with folks not being able to call the lobby, but to get access to our information, get new service, do all the things that they need to do in the modern age in a virtual lobby, off a website, as opposed to have to coming down to speak with folks here. We want to make policies make sense. Easier to pay bills, email, text, alerts. I mean, part of the advantage of doing smart meters and having AMI was, I thought it was something I said. Part of the advantages of having AMI was that you have more connectivity, not only in reading the meters, but telling the folks that are using the services what they can do. If there's a water leak you're not finding at 45 days when it's billed, you can get a readout that day and send notification out. So improving the customer experience, I always like to think about it as we're no longer your daddy's utility. You know, we really need to get into the next century, and it's your kid's utility now. I'm a grandfather, so I know what my grandkids tell me, and they look at the utility and what we do from a much different perspective. So that's the cornerstone of the customer first. But the other thing is, you know, we got to become one utility, one organization. We're siloed. We have silos. In business, we all talk about that, how one area has a certain function, another area. Well, that siloing starts to disintegrate when we bring in HR, human resources, that serves all of the organization. The same thing with legal. We're going to negotiate a separate collective bargaining agreement with the CWA. I voluntarily recognized the CWA as a separate bargaining agent for the utility. So we're going to enter into those negotiations. And And as part of that, being one organization, we're centralizing the people that have the most skills in the right areas to serve as experts for the parts of the organization. BFA becomes the numbers group. IT becomes the information group. Everyone plays off the same deck of cards. We're going to continue our fiscal discipline. Part of looking forward and under a debt reduction plan, we put in some operating expense reductions. We're holding vendors to task. We're holding contractors to task. And we're holding ourselves to task on how we spend money. Because the question I always ask everyone is, does the expense put the customers first? So through all these bullets, we're going to be thinking customer first, to the point that you're tired of me saying it. The next one is modernizing the fleet responsibly. And that goes to this IRP. We know what the variables are. We know what we have to do moving forward. But in my mind, it becomes right asset, right price, right time. That's the opportunity part of all of this. Right now, yes, we could get into a solar contract at the highest rates we've ever seen. We know that there's a blip in the market. Do we want to do it now, or do we do it later when we can save the customers money? So that's my job, that's the folks' job, and that's the customer first aspect of what we're trying to do for the organization. The next bullet is, there's only 3 more to go, but it's the debt reduction plan. That is so important. And it's driven by this reduced GFT. Whenever you hear folks talk about, well, you know, it's too low or it's too this, it's virtually going all to bringing down our leverage. We're trying to shoot for that 70% leverage. The GFT funds that plan along with the operating expenses, and it will bring GRU that financial freedom, that financial flexibility that we all want, that we ultimately can get the bills down to the average for the state, which happens to be the next bullet, and that's competitive electric rates. We're planning on, we had no increase in fiscal year 25, but we're talking about no increases in fiscal year 26 and 27. Not a lot of utilities are doing that. We're doing that with the GFT. We're doing it with operating expense reduction and CapEx reduction. So when other utilities are raising their rates, we're sitting there holding the line. And I think that's something to be very, very proud of for the folks in the community. And again, why is that? Customer first. GRU is a customer first utility. So finally, we need to complete the city transition. We need to redefine our relationships, and part of that's the SLAs. I have those pretty close to being final. I want reviews from all my folks at this point. And I think the city is amicable to the way they're written now. We need to get some success in court. Once that happens, we need to build on the synergies. You know, we have people out there every day working between the city and GRU that are working famously. They're doing things for the city. They want all this over with. And so we will work on those synergies. We're working on them now. And ultimately, we will coexist for the benefit of our customers and for the community. And so that's our vision. That's the goals for next year and beyond. So what's that, Buzz Lightyear? To infinity and beyond.
And Ed, you'll report out throughout the year against these areas.
Well, and that's the thing, Chair. I think that we can come up with metrics for each one of these. So let's use this as a building block, and then come back and we'll do it a little nicer than this. Okay. Looks like I cleared the house.
Good job. All right, Scott, I think you're next.
Mr. Chair, apologize. First of all, I apologize being late. I was on a Zoom hearing in front of Judge Copeland up in Columbia County, and we ran over, so I apologize for that. I didn't anticipate it running as long as it did.
Going to adjust our bill?
Yeah, we'll adjust.
I was thinking the same thing. That's spooky. I was going, we're getting a reduction.
As Ed said, we need a little success. We've had some success, but we need to build on that as well. We are in the process giving you a little update. We're in the process of sending out some discovery to the city as to some of the items that we think will lock down the facts further in this case that we have against the city of Gainesville, which then elicits a motion for summary judgment. We're drafting the summary judgment motion as we speak. I know the city's working on their side of it. They anticipate filing a summary judgment motion as well. You can't have a hearing until those motions are filed 40 days subsequent to the filing of those motions. So working backwards, the judge, Judge Wright, would like us to have a scheduling commitment by next Thursday, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. And so we're going to meet with him to get that ironed out. I think it will be something agreeable between the attorneys as to how that scheduling is going to work. But I would anticipate something like this, 60 days out for completion of all discovery, file your motions. The motions can be worked on in the interim while the discovery is going. And then 40 days from there would be your actual hearing on the matter. So I'm thinking April, late April, early May is what my anticipation will be of a schedule with that. And so I think that's what we have from the legal, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
No, I wish the room wasn't cleared out, but, you know, I agree with Bobby Murmer tonight, so it's unusual, but.
Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for my absence a second ago. The next item on the agenda begins the business discussion items with 2025-29, which is the state of the utility. The recommendation is that GRU Authority would hear the monthly update from the utilities operational areas.
Good evening, Tom Brown, Chief Operating Officer at GRU, and I'm here tonight to answer any questions you might have with regard to the State of the Utility Report as it was submitted. I think before I get started, a little show and tell here. Still walk a little bit like a penguin when I get there.
There's no sharp edges on that, are there, Tom?
I don't know. Be careful with it. What you're holding is a piece of the turbine rotor from Deer Haven Renewable. That's actually one of the pieces that failed. What I want you to look at is the very end of it. You'll see two small round wires, and that's actually the portion that failed. The rotor has actually 169 of those blades put around in the circumference. But it was actually those outer bands that keep the blades from vibrating that were showing the fractures, and therefore we had to send it out for repair. The rotor did come back last Wednesday, and it's back in its casing, the top's on, and they're in the process of buttoning everything up. We did slip a day, I think, because of transport issues when it was loaded coming out of Charlotte. So it looks like, I think it's going to be the 25th of January before it should be operational, and then we'll probably put it back in service after that a couple weeks later. The repair is probably going to add, I don't have the exact number, probably 1.5 million. You wouldn't think that little blade you're holding in your hand is about a $1,500 item, and there's 169 of them, so about $250,000 for the blades themselves, and the rest was the labor to take it out and put it back together and things. So, but kind of pleased with the result. If you wish you had the opportunity to get up and take a look at what was going on up there. There was a lot of work going on. It's just amazing. You can take that thing completely apart and put it back together, and everything works again. So that's kind of one of the bigger projects we had and going on. But I just wanted to report that it's going well. For the month of November was actually a really good month for the utility. We had no safety incidents, which is always number one on my list. We had no environmental issues. We had no compliance issues with NERC, so those are all good things. From the operational side of things on energy supply, I just gave you a quick update on DHR. We have an ongoing issue right now over at the SEC, the South Energy Center, the hospital. We have a steam-driven chiller that has been giving us fits for quite some time. Took it apart and found out the rotor has some issues. We have to send that over to Louisiana to Siemens to have it repaired. And we got a little bit of good news. We'd had a major bearing failure up at the DHR on the stacker reclaimer. That's the big thing that takes all the fuel and scrapes it, puts on the conveyor belt, sends it up into the boiler to be burnt. The main bearing on that went out, and it's a huge structure, so they had to actually jack the whole thing up, take the bearing out, repair it. It was like $1.5 million to have it done. But the good news is our insurance company's going to cover most of it, so we'll get a significant portion of that coming back for us.
And Tom, if I'm not mistaken, that was almost like 9-10 months ago. Did that happen?
Oh, yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah,
It's been put back in service, so.
But the key element is that insurance is covering that.
Yeah. Just a few things to highlight under energy delivery. The previous month, I think we had 181 outages. In November, we only had 36, so those were down. And there were half the number of customers affected, like 4,800 versus 9,000 the month before. So everything was trending in the right direction as far as availability of our circuit. We actually produced quite a bit more electricity, I think, in November than the previous month. That's always good to hear as well. So on the gas system, got a little colder out there, so we had looks like an extra 200,000 therms delivered in November versus October, so that's always good to hear. Deployment of AMI meters, you can see it actually increased. We're getting towards the final stages of that. By the end of this year, I think we'll have them all fully deployed and be working on getting the software systems put in place to start using that data to add further benefit to the customer. And we are actually getting quite a bit of benefit out of the system, even as it is today. We can turn meters on and off remotely, and that's a good thing. We don't have to roll a truck to do that. We're seeing meters that are being tampered with. When somebody takes it out of the socket or whatever, it screams at us, hey, somebody's messing with me. And we could send a truck out there to find out what's going on. No joke, we had a contractor who was out there doing some work on a series of apartments, and they actually pulled 10 meters at the same time and put them in a pile. Now, what do you think the possibility of those meters going back in the same socket were that they came out of? I'm guessing this department was probably going to pay the guy's bill from beside it, but fortunately we sent a truck out there and they put it back in the right socket. So there's a lot of things that go on out there that it's a wonderful thing. If somebody loses power, we see it. If we get bad power, we see it. And we're investigating quite a few things every day to increase the quality of the power actually being delivered. So I'm kind of excited about it. The water side of it will come. Notifying people when they have water leaks, I think is going to be a big thing. Send them a text, hey, your meter hasn't shut off. You might want to go check your toilet or sink or something else, rather than find out about it a couple months later. So restoration with the AMI is going to be better. We'll be able to see not only who's without power, but by knowing which meters are out power, be able to trace it back through the circuit and say, we think you have a problem right here, because all these meters downstream of it don't light. Kind of like finding a burnout light bulb on your Christmas tree lights, the last one that everything else goes out downstream. So a lot of good things. We're looking forward to that. Water, wastewater, we didn't have any refuse leave the pipes last month, so that's a good thing. No spills. That's always a good thing to hear. I think it's worth mentioning, Debbie, I think we had an evolution in the city 2 weeks ago where we had some odors. It smelled pretty bad. And of course, everybody looked at GRU. It was not GRU. Apparently, it was some people transporting chicken litter through the city and on trucks, and that's what was causing the odor. So just for the people out there watching, it was not GRU, it was the chicken trucks. So.
But we all checked the bottom of our shoes.
Every one of us.
My daughter said, where was me?
I guess. So, yeah. So there were no spills. So I think that's about all the highlights I wanted to highlight. Again, on the safety side, we had no incidences, and we had one vehicle accident last month, the recordable, versus 6 a month before. So that's always heading in the right direction too. So if you have any direct questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them. If not,
Thank you,
thank
Tom.
you for
Thanks
your
for your
time.
report.
Appreciate it. We've got a lot of good people out there doing a lot of good work for you all the time. You know, I wanted to take just a minute to talk about, you know, the issues come up on reliability of our assets, longevity of our assets. You know, how long do you run an asset? What are the risk factors of running that asset? And I'd just like to say, if the ultimate engineer had built our power plants, they would run 50 years or 75 years or 100 years, whatever you want them to do, and they would turn into a complete pile of dust. And that's not what happens. When I think of a power plant, I think a little bit differently than what you might think. When you look at Kelly over here, you see one big facility. I don't look at it like that. I see probably 15 or 20 different systems made up of hundreds, if not thousands, of components. And they all have a limited life, but they're all replaceable. So after 50 years, the power plant that you see out there, compared to the original, there's probably not too much of it left. It's probably all been changed out. Electronic devices, your phones, or anything electronic, it probably lasts 5 to 10 years, either because the electronics fail or you get updated electronics, those new products come out, and everything has a service life. A lot of times you can't get the part that you have. If you buy something from Home Depot at Lowe's and have a problem with it, you go back 5 years later, they don't sell it anymore, right? So you end up replacing it because you can't get parts for the device that failed. We don't really have that in the utility industry. There's always other products that can be adapted to it. And I think Kelly here's a great example. We had a steam turbine over there that was from 1965, so math in public, it was 59 years old. We probably changed it out when it was 55, somewhere around there. And the casing on it, the steam turbine, was the driver that we had to do the job to change the generator and steam turbine out. And the metallurgy on that was showing cracking, and it was a type of cracking that we couldn't really repair. It was just generally all through. And that was from thermal cycling the unit, heating it up, turning it down. Did we replace it with the same turbine generator? Heck no. Can't buy that anymore. It was long ago, you know, taken out of production. But what we did, we found a turbine generator that was the same size, and retrofitted it, adapted it, and put it in there, and it's over there running. And the advantage of, we got about 400 BTU reduction in the heat rate because it's a little bit newer technology, and we got an extra 4 megawatts out of it. So we get a little bit more capacity out of it as well. But the point is, we didn't scrap the whole unit because of the turbine generator. And that's kind of your big component, is that. The cooling towers, you can repair those. There's very few parts in a power plant that you can't replace. So you have to ask yourself, what's the compelling reason? What's the driver that you would abandon a power plant and build a brand new one versus repair the old one? And it's a tough argument. I mean, you could get potentially some sort of new whiz-bang technology that came around that you could get a much lower heat rate, and you justify putting a different plant on based on the cost of fuel. You have heard people tonight on environmentally. You know, if you want to do something on an environmental basis, that's a social issue, I think, that we're facing these days. You could justify it possibly on that. But to just say it's gone 50 years, it's time, we got to replace it, that's not the case. It's simply not. And some of the risks that we have were taking a unit out of service. For how long? That's the question. We do predictive maintenance, we do preventative maintenance. I mean, we do all kinds of preventative maintenance out there where we change oil, we do thermal imaging, we look for problems and stuff, change things out before they fail. We do predictive maintenance on things we know last X number of operating hours, where we'll just change them out and replace them. So we've got those kind of programs going on out there as well. So we constantly have this evolution of the plant as it goes through, but you're not going to just look at it as, well, it's 50 years, you got to change it out. But again, the risk factor on timing is when we changed the generator out here, we knew we had a problem. So what we planned for, we went out to the street with an IRP or an RFP, you know, found out the different people that potentially could supply the product. We basically selected the design, selected the consumer, and it was about, I'm going to say, a year once we selected Siemens to produce that generator set for us before we was here. So that's about maybe a year and a half in the process, you know, to get it here. But once it was here, I don't think it took us 3 months to actually install it. So if you know it's going to happen, you can respond for it in a timely manner. If you don't, if it just has a severe problem and fails, and it's something you can't fix, you potentially could lose a unit, that's older unit. You could lose a newer unit as well. I mean, there's no guarantee. Just because it's old or whatever, it doesn't mean it's going to fail sooner or later than a newer one. But if it were to fail, you could lose the unit for a couple of years. What does that mean for us? Well, think about it. Our average load is about 225 megawatts. We have about 650 megawatts of generation assets. So outside of the summer and winter, where we're getting up in the 350s, 400, we have a lot of extra capacity. So we can afford to keep a unit offline for a while. Deer Haven Renewables is an example. It's been offline since October. The lights are still on, right? And we also have the ability to import power when we need it. Now, Mr. Conish, you're absolutely right.
Explain it to him.
Yeah, we have restrictions on transmission, right? It seems like when we really need the power is when it's scarce and transmission is kind of restricted. But it will flow when we need it. I will tell you that. We have the Hampton tie is good for about 200 megawatts. We have a tie line with Duke that's good for about another 200 megawatts. So we can get power in when we need it. There was a case where we actually lost all our generation units at the same time. They all tripped offline. The lights never flickered in Gainesville. Power came in. Now, I'm not telling you that happened in the summertime when the load was up over 400. It probably was in the fall when it was down around 200. But it does flow, and we can respond. But it's not catastrophic. And we are looking at ways to strengthen those ties as well, to give us that ability to bring power in when we absolutely need it and get rid of that restraint. So this is not meant to be any way to answer your questions completely, but we do think about those things, and we do have programs in place, and we do have a reliable utility for you with the assets we have right now. So.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for the additional education.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, the next item is 2025-17, First Amendment of the contract between Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority and Folds Walker LLC General Legal Services. The recommendation is that the authority approve the extension to the General Legal Services Agreement with Folds Walker through August 8th, 2025.
I don't think, Mark, were you going to address this, or? Yeah, there wasn't really a presentation. Sitting next to this guy, Scott, I can tell you that he's done a fine job, through the organization, and we thought that job was done so well that we ought to extend for another 6 months his services, even though he showed up late to the meeting tonight.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and amend the First Amendment contract between GRU and Folds Walker. That would be 2025-17.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Public comment?
Mr. Chair, I'm not a friend of Mr. Walker's. I don't benefit financially in any way from anything he gets from you, except for the service that he's providing to me as a ratepayer. And one thing I really don't understand, and I'm kind of like bending the rules a little bit, but we had a rookie representative put out a bill that just extinguishes all the litigation, clears up the ambiguities, takes an absolutely brilliant piece of legislation and addresses just some things that really aren't so clear. They can keep these attorneys in court for years, sucking money out of GRU ratepayers, sucking money out of city taxpayers. And why would GRU, Mr. Pilarski, not be all over this bill and helping this guy out, helping him stand up to the people that have wasted millions of dollars suing, lawsuits without merit that the hospital probably sees every day? You know, why aren't we just ending the litigation so he can fully implement 1645 by getting behind this bill and get it off the table and make it even better? The qualifications requirements in this bill they're so complex the governor can't follow them. Your residency is challenged. Someone's not an electric customer. They could say that we don't have the right composition. Oh, the number of meters outside the city has changed. You know, like, if we would just make this better and get rid of the litigation, everyone would benefit. So yes, have Mr. Walker, but let's get him a powerful Tallahassee lobbyist to help this poor guy from Ocala that's in agribusiness fix Clemens' bill and make it better. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Don Shepard, and I agree with a lot of the aspects in which this former CEO had brought to the table. These are topics that we need to take and have somebody else follow in his footsteps, because that's education, that is history, that is the foundation of our city. We lose that, then what do we have? We have these other lines, as you pointed out, but we have history that is like the duck pond area, wiped away. Let's keep our history of the GRU, the city of Gainesville, and let's take and educate ourselves towards what do we need to do next to take and bring a new plant to Gainesville. I'm not in your shoes or his shoes. I don't know even a third of what he knows or you all know, but I do know this. I do know that this is something, when I heard it, the history that this gentleman has, that I don't know if we have somebody that has that history, that information down on paper. Like he said about Christmas lights. Yes, that is a critical thing that GRU has installed. The average person don't know. And so let's bring that forward. And if this is something that you think that needs to be done, then let's do this in behalf of our public and our people. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, back to the board for discussion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Scott, thank you for all that you do for GRU and our customers. We appreciate your service.
Yes, we do.
All right. The next item on the agenda is 2025-30, fiscal year 26 GRU budget presentation on GRU's debt portfolio review. The recommendation is the authority hear a presentation from staff.
We have the PowerPoint.
Yes, sir, it's up.
Okay.
Ask you, you shall receive.
Mr. Chair, over the next several minutes, you're going to hear me speak about how GRU rigorously monitors our debt portfolio and how we aggressively manage our balance sheet to control our debt service costs. And this slide speaks to one of the reasons why. This is our debt downgrade history over the last 12 years. As you can see, there are 5 separate downgrades. They encompass all 3 rating agencies. And there are tangible impacts both to the utility and to our customers from these downgrades. Higher debt costs when we go to market, lower savings when we do refinancings or restructurings, higher costs for credit facilities, increased counterparty risk, and potentially a higher probability of having to post collateral on some of our swaps. As calculated by our independent financial advisor, PFM, these downgrades are going to cost us approximately $67 million in incremental debt-related costs over the life of these issues. And if you look at the timeline, you can see that this started in 2012 with a 2012 restructuring. This was a financing that took place to generate short-term debt service savings to offset the increased costs from bringing the biomass plant online. We have been monitoring and managing this debt portfolio against the headwinds of the decisions that were made in from 2009 to 2012, in which doubled our outstanding principal overnight from about $900 million to $1.8 billion when that PPA came into place and the plant went online. Our outstanding debt is out of proportion with our peers. We generally, when we're looking at our credit metrics, look at 4 other utilities in Florida: Jacksonville Electric Authority, Orlando Utilities Commission, City of Tallahassee, and the City of Lakeland. If you look at the graph and the table at the top of this slide, what this shows us is that using fiscal year end 23 numbers, and we're using 23 because 24 financials aren't published yet, but using 23 numbers, GRU's ratio of outstanding principal to our annual revenue is 3.98 to 1. That is 2.3 times higher than the next highest of those peer utilities, which is Tallahassee, and it's about 3.3 times higher than the lowest in Lakeland. And obviously with debt levels this high, it's going to constitute a significant portion of our expense budget. The table at the bottom of this slide breaks down the composition for our 23 and 24 actual expenses and our 25 budget. And so if you track over to the right to the 25 budget column, we have approximately a little over $108 million that we're budgeting that we're going to spend on principal and interest for our existing debt. When you combine the almost $30 million that we project that we are going to execute through our accelerated debt reduction plan, it comes to about $138 million that we're going to pay in debt-related costs in our 25 budget. It's about 31.5% of the total budget. So you're talking about almost a full third of our expense budget in 25 is going to go to debt-related costs. I want to point out one other thing. I want to highlight the change in the general fund transfer and its relationship to the change in accelerated debt reduction in the light blue. If you look between 23 and 24, In 23, the general fund transfer was a little over $34 million, and it constituted about a little over 7% of our actual expense. We moved that GFT down. The GFT was reduced to 15 million, and we're about 3% in 24. And you can see the accelerated debt reduction went up from 0.25% of our budget to a little over 8.6%. And this is what Mr. Bilarski was alluding to earlier. The reduction in the general fund transfer is primarily going to fund our accelerated debt program. And the text in the middle there is appropriate for this. And given the level of our outstanding debt, our goal is to control debt service expense by aggressively managing our balance sheet through the debt reduction plan and also through strategic debt management, restructurings, and refinancings.
Before you go to the next one, Mark, we're going to be talking, this is kind of that first leg of the budget discussion, and that chart is like the holy grail of budget discussions for GRU. You can see of that $450 million, $150 million is O&M. That's when you look at where can you make an impact. Fuel is what the fuel is. Tom talked about the plants, and they require a certain amount of combustible material. It will be what the market demands. The utility plan improvement fund, that's what's demanded by the debt documents. The debt service, that's what we're paying. And then we have the debt reduction plan. It's the O&M. And what percent of that is payroll, Mark?
With payroll and fringe benefits is roughly just under $100 million.
Right. So when you start looking what's actually in O&M, I wrote the GRU at a crossroads in response to a commissioner asking, well, you have a $450 million budget, what can you cut? And when you really looked at some of these numbers, it was interesting. Hate to say the word playing around with, but you have at your discretion, somewhere in the order of $5 or $6 million out of a $450-some million budget to provide reliable service. So as you're looking at this, I just want you to understand that probably the best thing we can ever do is continue on that debt reduction defeasance plan so we reduce that principal so that we're not paying 30%, 1/3 of our budget on debt service. That has the huge impacts going forward. It's no different than somebody that has overspent on their credit card, and what's the first thing they got to do? Well, you got to pay that down somehow, and that GFT provides that for us. So with that will come better decisions in the future and the ability for us to reduce the bills for customers more than what we've actually done so far. So I just wanted to make that point.
Mr. Chair. Mark, I heard your numbers and they blow me away, and I've heard them 30 times from you. That's $378,000 a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year that we pay in debt.
Okay, well, that's discouraging. I don't normally
But
think
no,
that.
but I'm sitting here, I did it on my calculator, I hit my phone again. But if people really want to know what's going on and why we're pinching a penny here and we can't, build new power plants at whim, that's $378,000 a day. If you're blessed in this town and you've got a great degree, you're not going to still get that salary for a year.
No.
Just thought I'd throw it out there as holy moly. My calculator was wrong.
Okay. So there are a couple takeaways that I want to discuss about the debt portfolio. We've just talked about the fact that it's extensive. It's the size is extensive. We're very highly leveraged. We talked about the fact that the principal is 4 times our annual revenue, and it's almost 1/3 of our budget. It's complex. When you're trying to efficiently administer a portfolio of this size, it's got to be diverse. So we've got a combination of fixed and variable rate debt. We have swaps to mitigate the variable interest rate risk. And we have a combination of public market issues as well as private placement debt. This third bullet's very important because I want everybody to understand that this portfolio is actively monitored and managed by the GRU financing team. It's also important for me to note that GRU financing team is not just GRU staff. In addition to the staff that works on this, we have our independent financial advisor, we have an independent swap advisor, we have bond counsel, we have a disclosure counsel. This team entertains a number of proposals on a regular basis from underwriters who want to show us potential transactions that we can execute through the portfolio. The job of this team is to evaluate those, determine the transactions that make sense for the utility, and make sense for our ratepayers, and bring those forward to you for your review and consideration. The number of transactions that you see and that we bring to you and talk to you about is just a small percentage of the ones that we evaluate. But since 2017, we've executed 13 transactions that will save over the life of those issues over $1 billion in debt service related costs. As Ed pointed out, we have put in place an accelerated debt reduction plan. The goal is to reduce our net debt by about $395 million by 2033, which will reduce that debt to capitalization ratio to about 70%. When we began this program, it was in the high 80s. And we have, since 2021, when the program, the accelerated debt reduction program was put in place, we have taken a little over $51 million in principal off in an accelerated fashion prior to its original maturity date. We've also, we track our financial metrics. Those are financial ratios that that rating agencies use to assess and compare financial performance. We've codified these metrics in our approved debt management policy, and we track them on a regular basis. So this is kind of a 30,000-foot look at the composition of our debt. After we made our October 1st principal payment, we have about $1.74 billion in outstanding principal. A little over 2/3 of that, or $1.1 billion, is in original issue fixed rate debt. The balance of just over $571 million is original issue variable rate debt. But we have executed approximately $456 million in fixed to floating swaps, which has synthetically fixed that component of the variable rate debt, such that at this point, about a little over 93% of our portfolio is either original issue fixed rate debt or synthetically fixed debt. So we only have a little bit less than 7% of our portfolio that's unhedged variable rate debt that is subject to interest rate movements in the financial markets. In the small type in the lower left-hand corner, of just over $1 billion of these issues were public market issues. In a public market issue, we do a competitive process to determine an underwriting group. We do a formal disclosure document, an official statement. We go through a rating agency process. It's a big lift. It's a big administrative lift to do a full-blown public market issue. It takes about 90 to 120 days. It's the balance of that is just under $700 million are private placements. We do the same competitive process, but it's to identify a single bank that we then negotiate the loan with, and they take the entire piece of the loan, rather than under a public market loan where that underwriting group will set a pricing date and sell specific maturities of the issue to people like pension funds, insurance companies, money market funds on a retail basis. In a private placement, a single bank buys that. So they're sophisticated issuers, so we're not required to generate a public disclosure document. We don't have rating agencies. But on both of those methodologies, it's important to note that we do a competitive process to start the process, and our financial advisor is with us all the way from start to finish, documenting that we're getting market rates, through either process. I mentioned that we put in place for GRU the first ever accelerated debt reduction plan. It's basically what that entails, and Mr. Bolarski alluded to it earlier. We identified a number of resources to provide funds for the pool of monies that we use to accelerate that debt retirement. It comes primarily from the GFT reductions, as he stated. It also comes from incremental rate revenue, from base rate increases in the electric and wastewater systems from 22 to 24. We have about $28 million of committed O&M expense budget reductions through 2033 that will go into that pool. We had 7 restructuring transactions that we executed in 2020. The savings from those transactions go into this pool. We got the GRU portion of the savings related to the 2020 pension obligation bonds that general government completed. And we have to date, we have one-off, the proceeds from the sale of the trunking radio system. All of those resources go into the pool. We have to date, like I said, we've taken out about $51 million in accelerated principal reduction. 39 of that, a little over 39 of that was in fiscal 24. As you look at the bottom, when you add that $39 million that we took out in 24 with the scheduled principal payments in 24 of $35 million, we reduced principal in fiscal 24 by over $75 million. I mentioned that we have an active financial metric program. These metrics are financial ratios. Rating agencies use them to calculate, assess, and compare financial performance. We codified what we believe are the most important of those, most significant of those metrics in our debt management policy. The table that you see up here, basically, it lists those metrics, the type of the metric, the target, and then over to the right-hand side, we have the actual ratios in 2024. And what this table shows you is the same thing that you'd see if you read any rating agency report on GRU. We have very strong liquidity metrics. We have solid debt service coverage metrics, and our leverage or capital structure metrics need work, and that's what the debt reduction plan is put in place to do. We calculate these internally. We track them. We calculate them at the end of the March, June, and September quarters, so that when we sit down and talk with the rating agencies, we're prepared. We understand the metrics and the numbers that they're going to be talking to us about, because we've already calculated those and already analyzed what's gone into them. And that's it, just to let you know that we will continue, to follow the board direction for administration of the program, and we will continue to pursue reducing the outstanding debt using the programs that are in the approved debt management policy. So,
Any questions for Mark?
Yeah, Mark, real quick, our target's 70% to our debt capitalization. That's not our ultimate goal, though.
No,
that was target. What does the rating agencies, what would they smile about?
They would probably smile at something closer to 50%.
Okay.
For us, like I said, we started at 89%. 70% in a decade was a stretch goal at that point in time. We've made good progress towards it, but it's still, we're going to be issuing debt every 2 to 3 years. And so we're going to be adding to that principle as well as reducing it through the debt reduction program. So you're right. 70%, number one, for us is not the ultimate goal. And number two, it is not necessarily the figure that the rating agencies would like to see. We have a lot of discussions with Fitch about our leverage. They would like to see it around that 50% level and 8 times what our available cash is. So we've still got a lot of work to do.
You guys are doing a great job.
You guys are doing an awesome job. That's a fact.
Well, the adage applies here. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Mark? Mark, thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a resolution. I need to remind you that is a roll call vote. I will read the full title into the record. It's Resolution Number 2025-26. The title reads, "A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of city government of the City of Gainesville, Florida, authorizing and ratifying the authority's use of independent legal counsel to serve as utilities attorneys for the purpose of conducting the business of the authority, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date." The recommendation is that the GRUA approve the resolution that authorizes the utilities attorney as an agent of the city for the purpose outlined in the charter amendment, and to provide that utilities attorney perform legal services for the authority as directed or approved by the authority or the CEO/GM, including, without limitation, to sign as to form on legality all agreements entered into pursuant to the charter amendment for the benefit of the system, and ratifies all prior actions heretofore taken by the utilities attorney.
Why are you looking at me?
It's gonna have to be Chip.
Hmm?
You got this.
I don't even have the number in front of me.
You want me to do it?
I got the number, but I don't know what else to say.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. You got it, Jack?
Jack's got it. Go ahead, you start.
It's all on you, Jack.
Passing the buck.
Make a motion that we approve Resolution 2025-26 as written.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment?
Donald Shepard. My comments, this is, it all looks good. But I'm not a professional like y'all are. So I wanted to ask, why isn't this held at the city hall where we can get it on PDF so that the citizens can take and see it, number one, and so that the other business people that are in Gainesville can take and see this and make their own decision. Well, should I keep my company here or what? This is critical. So, like I said, these meetings need to be held at the city auditorium so that it can be recorded and the public can see it on Channel 12, as I do. And I come to all the meetings, but the most important thing is information for the public. When you don't hear why your electric bill was shut off, well, shut down of Kelly Plant 1, Kelly Plant 6, Dearborn. These are things that the public needs to know. But if we don't have them at the city, it's hidden away, like at the Thomas Center or Leslie Klein building room. Hello, where is the city input for it? If I didn't come here, I don't think there'd be any city input. But y'all are doing a great job. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Shepard. Back to the board for any additional questions or comments.
Okay. Director Craig Carter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Jacobs?
Yes.
Director Skinner?
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
Yes.
Motion passes with all voting in favor. Last but not least is director comments.
Jack, anything?
Well, I'll just say happy to be back here for the new year with everybody, and hope everyone had a safe holidays and everything. I think looking forward to the new year. I hope we can do some work in getting rid of some of the misinformation from our audience and stuff like that. We had a resolution about the solar thing. You think we're trying to eliminate solar power altogether, and we're just talking about one agreement that was a bad agreement, basically a bad deal. And, other information about there about the cost of, what solar is compared to the natural gas or coal. The public we just need to educate our constituents better on just how clean we operate, whether it's gas, coal, or biomass. And certainly down the road, if, solar opportunities present itself, we're going to look into that as well as other energy things. But I just heard a lot of disinformation out there, and I hope that the course of the year we can educate our citizens to realize that all these things are business decisions on our part just to make it better for all of our customers.
Great comments, thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that, except for the room is cleared out for the most part, We are still on YouTube so people can see us. I would like to get the message to the people, and that's why I'll just go ahead and say it, that we are local, Local control's still here. Every one of us are local. And you don't have to talk at us and leave. We can have conversations about it when you hear what you have to say, If you think we're not doing the job you want us to do, that's fine, but we have to have some back and forth input, because when there is information that's wrong or incorrect, we might have some information that the public doesn't. And we can, help them out with that, and that would be helpful. So I hope some of the people that have loud voices would like to stay sometimes, and you never know. And I actually agree with Bobby Byrne tonight on the fluoride thing, so that was cool.
Oh, I think the other board members have hit the nail on the head, so I don't feel the need to address anything else. I wish they would stay and engage us more than they do, other than to come here and, sometimes borderline threaten us. Don't forget you live in this community. No, we don't forget that. That's why we are here and doing our civic duty as citizens of Gainesville. We're not getting paid for this, and I think people forget that sometimes. And I don't believe any of us are in anybody's pocket out there. So this fallacy that we're working for fossil fuel, it's not true. We have to look at lowering our debt, being fiscally conservative, lowering people's bills, and being affordable. And that's the bottom line.
Thank you.
I've had 2 interactions with clients, and I wanted to bring this up. Customers, clients, whatever. One gentleman started talking to me about gas. He said, I'm thinking about getting gas and a gas generator with everything. He's up in his age. And he was asking me about it. He contacted GRU. They come out and had a conversation with him. But what blew my mind is when I met him for breakfast, and he wouldn't shut up about how amazing the employees were. He did, I think he's going to lunch with these people now. I don't know. But it was absolutely amazing. He goes, these were the most courteous, most knowledgeable. And he just really was just so proud of GRU. And I'm going to bring up another one, and it's a Debbie's dairy hit the water. We had a water leak. And they came out, and it was a sticky one. Apparently there was 2 leaks. Again, they said they've never dealt with such nice people. And it goes back to what I used to say on the city commission. I believe a cop can give you a ticket and get a thank you at the same time. So here you have a water leak, which everybody gets nervous about. And when he was done, he called me and said, these were the most amazing people you sent out. I didn't send them out there. That's top down. But it is. Everybody thinks, oh, Craig sent them, they're the best. I had nothing to do with it, but that's top down leadership. And that's what our customers need to understand what we have in this company, 840 amazing people. So thank you very much for making us look good.
I'd just like to say thanks for all your service on the board, and thanks for all the work that you do in between the meetings, getting educated and spending time with Ed to get up to speed. I know it's a lot of time and a big commitment, but I'm really proud of the progress that this board is making, and I'm excited about 2025.
We have good leadership, sir.
Yes.
All right, with that, I think we're adjourned. Thank you.